That looks great.
Cool. My fancy glasses. Anyways, do you want to introduce the show or no?
Yeah, I feel good with. I can pull some excerpts of kind of what we've talked about so far as our actual TV show intro thing.
What you need is you just need to see something in super intense. You are watching MC TV. Explosions.
Cut to a title card. Insert explosion here.
We don't have the budget. And that's why we need you to help. If you sign up for our Patreon, you will get explosions.
More than just me doing pew, 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 pew.
No, I feel like there's going to be some people that are going to appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anyways. That doesn't affect my voice. Hello and welcome to the 14th episode of the Shamelist Picture Show podcast. I'm Michael Vyers, and with me, as always, is my co-host, who proudly had the nickname Dr. Goodhead in high school.
Nick Richards. It's true. It's true.
I always try to find a different way to introduce you.
I have really been enjoying those.
It's my goal of every week. It's like, how can I find a new way to introduce Nick? And I've also realized while editing this show, I've got a very specific way I say hello and welcome to. I feel like I could hit it exactly each time. But anyways, today is not about how I say introductions or the fact that your nickname was Dr. Goodhead. Today's episode is a tribute show to the late, great Roger Moore. I grew up a huge Bond fan, and while Sean Connery will always be the gold standard for the role, Roger Moore was my James Bond. A kid never forgets their first Bond, just like some kids don't forget their first Doctor, as in Doctor Who.
Anyway, lead on. Allons-y, but not too fast. Our ankle's going.
And or you don't forget your first musical icon. And Sir Roger Moore was mine. His cocky swagger, classic good looks, and his humor is what made me love him so much. To me, he embodied everything I wanted from this character. And while some of these traits are present in other interpretations, for my money, he was the best, even if sometimes his movies weren't the best. Roger Moore had a career that expands far beyond the Bond series, but because of this role, he'll never be forgotten. So, thank you for the memories. And I believe this is your first Roger Moore Bond outing, right, Nick?
It is. I've only seen one other Bond film, and it was Casino Royale, one of the newer ones. So this was my first venture into classic Bond.
Oh, also, another notable death recently that has to tie into Casino Royale was the singer Chris Cornell, who did the theme song for Casino Royale. So, we'll give a shout out to him and his family, and in their time of need.
Indeed.
But in tribute to Roger Moore and his addition to the Bond series, this episode will be talking about one of his goofier entries into the franchise, Moonraker. Directed by Lewis Gilbert, this was his third and final Bond film, Lewis Gilbert that being, based on a book by Ian Fleming, very loosely. Moonraker is about the MI6 super spy named James Bond investigating the disappearance of an experimental spacecraft aptly named Moonraker. While searching, Bond meets Hugo Drax, the man behind the production of Moonraker, and his newest gal pal, Dr. Holly Goodhead. Like any good Bond film, the disappearing spaceship is just a step one in a bigger plot to conquer the world. And Bond must travel all around the world to uncover every sinister clue. The film stars Roger Moore, Lois Childs, Michael Lonsdale, and Richard Kiel as Jaws.
From the most exotic locations on Earth, Moonraker will transport you to another world.
Trifle overpowering, your scent.
Holly was a warm girl with the right connections.
Could this possibly be the moment for us to pool our resources?
We would be better off working together.
More excitement, more thrills, more spills. And guess who's dropped in for a bite? Jaws is back. From Earth to the most spectacular adventure in space, Moonraker. It's out of this world.
What exactly are you up to here, Drax? Moonraker 1, liftoff.
Moonraker 2, liftoff.
Moonraker 3, liftoff.
Moonraker 4, liftoff. We have liftoff.
What's that?
An entire city in space.
James Bond and the treacherous Dr. Goodhead. Despite your efforts, my finely wrought dream approaches its fulfillment.
Not the shark. Not to be confused with that classic TV personality.
However, someone dropped the ball that they didn't try to remake the trailer of Jaws starring Richard Kiel. Like, I just feel like that was a wasted opportunity.
Coming to the Shameless Picture Show podcast.
I wonder if we could get him. He's still alive, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think the last movie role he did was Happy Gilmore.
Yeah, still coasting on the Gilmore money.
Yeah, well, to be fair, he's paralyzed, so he can't move.
Know that.
Yeah, he I think he was in a massive car accident, so he can't actually walk or stand on his own. Okay. So in that scene, like, you know, where he's standing above everyone else, they have him propped up on something, and everyone's just kind of like kneeling next to him because he's
wow.
Yeah, he can't walk. So that scene where he's like running, and you don't see his legs.
Movie magic.
Yeah, but you know, he's a good sport. It seems.
Right?
He came out to do that movie when he doesn't need to. He's got that Jaws money. He played
Moonraker money.
He played Jaws twice, 2.5 times.
I noticed that.
First time he was a little more of an actual assassin, like, you know, used to be scary, and this one he's just kind of funny. But there's a story about that which we will get to a little bit later. But he played it 2.5 times. The 0.5 was in one of the James Bond video games. They used his likeness.
Nice. That's right. Yeah. I was cruising IMDb at some point during my watching and noticed that.
I think it's like Everything for Nothing or something, which is probably one of the best James Bond games since GoldenEye. But, you know, whatever.
And your tricks for free.
Yeah. So this is a first for both of us. My first time seeing Moonraker, your first time classic Bond and Roger Moore. We had talked about possibly doing Cannonball Run because it just seems like it's so goofy
because
fun.
Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, but I think we made a good choice with this one. We could do Cannonball Run anytime, but this is Moonraker. Moonraker. Acre. Moonraker. So what do you think of it, Nick?
Well, as a quick aside, I believe this is the first episode where we've analyzed a film that was on both of our Shame-lists. Or was there another one?
Dead air. Where's our list of movies we did?
This out.
Hold on, let me pull up SoundCloud because that's the easiest way to figure out what we have done. And I can just cut out all this dead air.
Yeah.
Hey, you changed you changed one of the pictures on there. That's nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna at some point I'm gonna go back and retroactively update the other one so that the text spacing is correct.
Look at you. All right. Actually, you might be. I really thought we had another one that was on both of our lists. Maybe it's something we planned and we never got to.
We've done episodes where we've done more than one thing in a way, where I've seen one and you've seen one.
You know what? I thought you hadn't seen Gone with the Wind, so that was probably it. And all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
right.
Back to your last question. What did I think? I was, despite having not seen any of the classic Bond stuff, I still knew the reputation of Moonraker. I mean, you read the description and you see the promo material, the trailers, and it's like, all right, this is going to be the ridiculous one where they let's make The Last Starfighter but with Bond. And I was pleasantly surprised as to how traditional, or at least along the stereotypes, because I have little to compare it to, but it seemed like a traditional Bond film still. That is until the last 20 minutes. I expected more like James Bond in space, but it was really James Bond world gallivanting and lady seducing, with very thin, now I've figured out this clue. Did you though? Did you figure out that clue, or did they just kind of retroactively say, okay, now here's the new country that you need to go to do the same thing?
No, I kind of loved that it was there was a clue. For those of you listening, you can't see that I'm very I'm doing air quotes.
I could hear your air quotes, though.
Thank you. There's a clue in each area of the world, and they're just spread out so specifically.
And he spends so little time in that place actually tracking down that clue. Once or twice, there's okay, I've actually discovered something. And then there's other times where he's just in an area, he gets chased by Jaws, makes out with a chick, and then shows back up at headquarters. It's okay, 007, you figured this out, so now you have to go here.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember him figuring that out, but maybe I just wasn't paying attention.
But I also really liked the movie. I will say this, I had a lot of fucking fun with this movie, and I think this would be great with an audience. Yep. If I could ever rent out a movie theater, theatre, I would show Moonraker with a group of people. And also, I think Moonraker is one of those, because it's not. And once you see some more classic Bonds, I feel like you might agree, it's not the best made. And that's not even true, because it's confidently made. It's just not the best of the classic Bond films. Because the scripting's a little wonky, and I've got some issues with it. And so it's not one of his best adventures, not one of his best outings. But boy, is it stupidly fun.
Yes.
So I feel like this is a Bond film that I would pull off the shelf more often. But if I wanted to show someone who's never seen a James Bond film, it's I want to know what the Bond series is all about. This might not be the one I would pull. Yes, it's got all the tropes, and it's got it's everything you need to know about Bond. but like I would start with like Goldfinger or Dr. No or even
One of
Casino
the more
Royale.
Iconic.
Yeah, because Casino Royale did a good job of feeling classic yet contemporary.
Okay.
But no, that being said, I thought it was great.
Again, the stereotype, like I expected the movie to open with some crazy intense chase scene, which they all, from what I can tell, seem to. And by the end of that skydiving sequence with Jaws, I was thinking to myself, while the James Bond stuff isn't necessarily for me, like I have enjoyed both of the James Bond films that I've seen, but at no point during either of those did I have to go back and watch them all. But by the end of that skydiving sequence, I thought to myself, I get it. Like, and plus, I can see how much fun this is for the right group of people.
Yeah, and like that was a great just that skydiving sequence in general, because like I thought it was really well done and it was super well shot. I don't know. I was like, ooh, skydiving.
I've thought about it several times since watching it, wondering which of the shots were practical versus which shots were special effects. There were one or two where you could tell that they were shot in front of a screen.
Yeah.
But kudos to the crew for those great shots. And really,
no, exactly. They had a skydive cinematographer, so like they did that,
right? Which
is pretty great. All right, I've got such random notes. I feel I don't know where to begin, but I feel like the most logical one is my very first note. Debt theme song. The Moonraker theme song.
Which one of those great Bond tropes is you have it starts out with the shot of him in the tux spinning in towards the down the barrel.
Oh my god, and then like just the way they shoot like these crazy like title sequences.
Yep.
They're all great. They're all worth the price of admission right there alone. Like I've not seen one of those that I've hated. And then it's a double trope this time. Because not only is it a very classy spy-oriented theme song, but two, it's Shirley Bassey, who's recorded a couple of their themes, most notably Goldfinger and Diamonds Are Forever, which Kanye West later on sampled for his Diamonds of Sierra Madre track, which is a dope song. But however, I don't think they know what Moonraker is in this song. If you go and listen I'm wondering if they wrote the track before the script was finished, or if they didn't even
didn't bother sending it to them.
They didn't let Shirley Bassey like even see the movie, because from what I read, like they had tried to get Frank Sinatra and a couple other people to come in and record, and they recorded a version of a song with someone else, but it didn't pan out. So like Shirley Bassey had like a week before the film was going to come out to come and do this track. But let me read you a couple lyrics, and you can see what I mean. I don't think they know what Moonraker is. Where are you? Where do you hide? Where is that moonlight trail that leads to your side? Just like the Moonraker goes in search of his dreams of gold, I search for love, for someone to have and hold. So they think Moonraker's a person.
or is it just such a deep metaphor? No, I think they just think it's a person.
Songwriters Hal David and John Barry. Come on, guys. What did you think Moonraker was? Like the same thing with like when Adele did Skyfall. If you listen to the lyrics, it's like the way she sings about Skyfall is not at all like what it actually is in the movie.
And the Moonraker theme sounded suspiciously like Moon River.
I never thought about that, but
throughout the whole movie I was singing Moon River to myself because
I also loved that during the credits they had a disco version of the Moonraker theme. Like you do, because you need a disco theme of that. So that's my first note. Like, I don't really know how to like go about this. I've kind of got an idea of where to start, but I was gonna kind of see how you wanted to go about this.
I have a lot of thoughts on the film, but I have a feeling that if we start anywhere but with the ending, that I'm gonna be distracted because I'm thinking about the ending.
Then should we start with the ending and
I
talk
want to
about
get that out of the way, and then we can go back.
All right, I have an idea of how to begin this, but I'm gonna go with it. You've got this pent up thing where you need to talk about it. So, what do you want to talk about the ending, Nick?
So you have the Bond film, the hour 15, hour and a half long Bond film, and then you have a weird short film tacked on at the end, where astronauts have a laser battle in what they claim to be zero gravity, even though everyone's hair is laying down as they slow motion walk around the
However, I did
space
read
station.
that this is one of it had the most zero gravity wires of any other movie ever.
It doesn't show.
No. I was saying to Amanda, it's like, would you really move that slow in zero gravity? I feel like I've seen astronauts who are moving at normal speed, or at least a little bit faster than that. I guess my before I talk about like this movie's obvious influence is making babies. That's the plot for this movie, is they want to make babies. Like, I'm really truncating this plot a little bit, but
in like a Nazi kind of way.
Well, Hugo Drax in the book was a Nazi, so I guess that kind of works.
Okay, there you go. But yeah, there's definitely the subtext of, you know, the pure race stuff that. And while we're on the subject, it's asked in the film, I believe by Bond, maybe by Dr. Goodhead, why they even bothered creating a Moonraker for the government in the first place. And the answer in no way satisfied me, because once the evil plan got unveiled, that was my first question too. Like, you have all the money. If you really want to do that, we had to test one first. So test one. Don't give it to the government. Like,
see, that's not at all like what I thought happened, because like I thought I misunderstood, because I was like, man, did that just really happen? Because like when they're talking about like, well, why did you steal Moonraker back? Whoa. I just heard someone say the word really, and it really threw me off. I don't know what I'm hearing. Does something like, I know what I think it is. I think one of the websites I have pulled up has ads on it that might have started playing. Well, anyways, when he's talking about like why he stole Moonraker back is because he had lent it to the government, and he just like, why didn't you just ask for it back? Like, maybe I misunderstood that, but it really just made it sound like, I lent it to them and I realized I needed it, so I stole it.
And if you're trying to essentially kill most everyone on the planet, with the exception of a small hand, like, why would you expose yourself to that level of, like, 007 would have never gotten involved if the ship hadn't gotten stolen from but he never had to give Moonraker to the government in the first place. He could have just built a spaceship or two on his own in his facility, sent it up, had the satellite, poison everybody with the flowers, and bingo bango, he would have won.
Yeah, it's almost like, were they intentionally trying to invite Bond?
Right.
Because there's actually a quote that makes me laugh. Hugo Drax says, James Bond, you appear with the tedious inevitability of an unloved season. And then later on, he says something along the lines with, you foil every chance I try of like killing you interestingly. Mr. Bond, you defy all my attempts to plan an amusing death for you.
And how many times did he have to catch him on the space station? Like, he catches him, he escapes. He catches him again, he escapes. He catches him again.
All right, guard, begin the unnecessarily slow-moving dipping mechanism. Close the tank!
Wait, aren't you even gonna watch them? They could get away.
No. I'm going to leave them alone and not actually witness them dying. I'm just going to assume it all went to plan. What?
I have a gun in my room. You give me 5 seconds, I'll get it. I'll come back down here. Boom! I'll blow their brains out.
Scott, you just don't get it, do you? You don't.
Like,
no hassle.
When I saw Austin Powers and you see them making fun of this, evil villain catching the hero and not killing him right away, you think that they're taking a certain amount of license.
No, they are not.
But it's really that bad.
Like, and this happens in some of the older Bond films. Like, to an extent, this happens in Goldfinger, but they treat it, they handle it better. Like, the villain, like, you can tell, like, he's obviously annoyed, but, like, he's saving I don't know, I just feel like they handled it differently. And in this one, it just, I come to the conclusion that Hugo Drax sucks at being a villain.
Yeah,
I just feel
terrible villain.
I just feel like he just decided one day, I've got this money, I'm going to become a supervillain, and he just doesn't know what to do, and he's just doing things because that's what I have to do.
I saw a couple of Bond films. It looked interesting to me. I thought I'd get into the game.
However, he's got an amazing team because they're able to clear out an entire laboratory from a room with no trace.
I would love to see in that large facility he had the area dedicated to making the uniforms for all of his henchmen. Because a lot of thought was put into those, like, mini skirt, shoulder paddy, gold trimmed things. And I also believe that not one female in the entire cast was wearing a bra.
Probably not. Sure. Most of this movie...
Not that that's a problem. That's
no.
great if you want to... I freeball it every once in a while. It's...
I'm also...
You just think percentage-wise, one of them would be.
Yeah, I was super amused. Like, I don't usually question this, but then when I saw how many henchmen and people had working for him, it's like, how do you hire the people like this? Like, does someone just apply for this job? Or like,
do you think they have 401ks?
Yeah, like, honey, I'm gonna go work for a supervillain today. I'll be home for dinner. Oh, he's launching me into space. Like, how do you get that many people? And it's not like you could put a Craigslist ad out because Craigslist didn't exist then. It's like, or is there like
great benefits, opportunity to travel,
or is there like a network? Like, is there like an underground network of like, you come to me if you want help? But then you have to have scientists. I can't imagine there's this many scientists in the world working.
Let alone evil scientists or morally neutral. Morally flexible scientists.
Yeah. However, there is a great line said by Dr. Goodhead about Hugo Drax. What he doesn't own, he doesn't want. Well, duh. That's such a dumb line. That's just dumb. I said that out loud. It's like, that's dumb.
Your music's bad and you should feel bad.
But talking about the ending of this film, you can't talk about the ending without mentioning the fact that Star Wars, am I right? Like, Star Wars is 77.
But a not good version. Like, there are not good versions of Star Wars that are good. This one was just tacked on in such a weird way.
Funny thing is, it's like you'd watch this movie, it's like, oh, I get it, it's a cheaper version of Star Wars. This movie had so much more money than Star Wars did. But no, that's exactly what happened, because For Your Eyes Only was supposed to be the next Bond after The Spy That Loved Me. But Moonraker was chosen out of Ian Fleming's novels because of the Star Wars popularity.
Sure.
They're like, well, kids like this spacey shit. Let's put Bond in space. And no one said no. And Ian Fleming originally had a script written for this because he wanted to make it, but it's worth noting that the novel for Moonraker has nothing to do with space.
Okay.
Let me read to you kind of what it's about. It's about the premise of is that Hugo Drax, he builds the Moonraker, which is a prototype missile designed to defend England. Unknown to Bond, Drax is a German, an ex-Nazi working for the Soviets, and is planned to build the rocket, arm it with a nuclear warhead, and fire it at London. That plot later on became the story for The World Is Not Enough.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Die Another Day. Die Another Day, okay. Which is like the last Pierce Brosnan film. Which is one I liked a lot when I first saw it. But I can't comment on how good it is. But that's more of a true adaptation of Moonraker, more so than Moonraker is. Also worth noting that this is the last Bond novel to be adapted until Casino Royale. But essentially they're like, well, the Star Wars stuff is so popular. Let's put Bond in space.
This is what happens when big studio producers make artistic decisions.
Yeah. And like it's annoying that they had so much more money than Star Wars and it looks cheap. But for some reason this movie was nominated for an Academy Award for effects. And there's also the highest Yeah, isn't that funny? Like they're nominated for an Academy Award for special effects. And you look amazing. At it and like, how? And it was also the highest grossing Bond film ever until GoldenEye.
Wow.
But like it's so funny because it wears its references on its sleeve. Like there's a shot that's like I pulled up a screenshot from 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's like, Amanda, this shot's taken directly from that movie. And she's like, oh shit, it really is, because she's never seen it. And then like it's the sounds the lasers make, like when Bond was walking through Q Branch and they're working on those like laser guns. Amanda's like, okay, Star Wars.
Pew 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 pew.
It just feels like it was made by a bunch of people who don't really get this spacey.
Yeah, or Bond's. Well, the tail end of it, people that don't understand the Bond stuff.
Yeah.
The first 2/3 of it, even 3/4 of it, felt normal Bond, and I just had a flash memory of the fight with the samurai henchman in the vase.
Oh yeah.
Room, where they have that again, like this whole scene of James Bond sneaking around while a tour guide explains how expensive all of these vases are.
And then they have the literal bowl in a china shop scene.
He goes away, they have a few more scenes where he's actually trying to figure things out, comes back into that where... And they have that really expensive one right in the middle, and you're just
yeah.
Okay, that's going to get knocked over. Okay,
however, there's a great comedic part where, like, it's broken, and he sets it back down, and it turns the sensor off. Like, that just made me laugh way more than it should have.
Which, kudos to some of my comments have made it seem like I don't like this film, and that's not true. I don't respect this film.
That's fair.
But I love the film, and I'm so glad it got made, and I'm so glad it got made the way that it got made. Because if this didn't exist, then I wouldn't have all of this joy inside of me right now.
If I could re-edit the film, and I feel like it'd make the movie a lot easier for people to swallow, I would just whenever Bond's just looking at listening to someone talk, I would have the person's dialogue just kind of slowly drone out, and you would just hear Roger Moore going, I don't really understand this. I'm drunk. Because like his reactions half the time just seems like he's drunk and he's just kind of falling into and like he's just getting lucky.
They're just falling into his lap.
Yeah, it's almost too easy for him. Like you watch some of the older ones, like it's like some of the Sean Connery, you actually feel like he's working for it.
I'm now imagining like a geriatric James Bond sitting around like really questioning his life because everything came so easy to him earlier, and what's it all mean?
It's also worth mentioning this film has like every Bond trope ever created.
Right, which again, as an intro to Bond, I actually kind of appreciate it. It's like, yep, okay, there's the thing that the gadgets. Okay.
Yeah, there's the gadgets.
Tangent.
Oh, continue.
The gadgets. The first one they introduced is that little wristwatch dart gun. Great great Bond toy that he can use to secretly shoot darts at people. Awesome. But they very specifically pointed out that he had 5 of each dart. Right? 5, I think, explosion darts and 5 crazy purple knockout darts, except they were blue. Typically, when you in a film, when you point out the number of something, there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
Except here, he only fired like 3 of the darts throughout the entire film. Okay, fine, I'll give you a pass. Why? But then also it just drew attention to it in a way that's like, all right, you have all of this money at your disposal. Why not give him 500 of each dart? Like, it was like shown like, all right, here's what you've got to work with, 5 of each dart.
I've got 2 answers for that. One that's one that's might be a true answer, and one that is more than likely wrong, but it might change your perception on it. Okay. The one that I think is actually true, is in one of the earlier Bond films, they make reference to that almost everything that Q Branch makes is a prototype. So, they probably don't have 500 darts. That's what half the time there's always a line in these movies about whenever Q gives Bond some sort of vehicle too. They're like, "Please bring this one back in one piece, Bond," and he smiles and walks away because it's a prototype.
About the boat.
Yeah, it's a prototype. It's the only one they have.
But they made 10 of them. Why couldn't they make 20?
Well, because
why couldn't they make 50?
Maybe if this mission would have came a week later, they would have had 50. They had to give him what he needed. And I also wonder about that, like, because there's that scene where like he has to stop the zero G thing. Well, you know what I'm talking about, the spinny thing.
First time that he used it.
And he shoots it. And I was like, oh, that's a great way to get out of that. Did they devise that sequence for the gadget they knew they wanted to have, or did they retroactively add the gadget knowing that they couldn't get him out of that sequence?
Right. Also, I can't imagine that shooting a dart at the display screen would have shut down the machine.
I don't think these people understand technology.
Yeah, which, again, I'm criticizing the logic of the film. I'm not telling them that they should have done anything different, because that's part of what made it great.
Yeah, and then my reasoning for why they might have mentioned the fact that he had 5 of each dart, but only used 3, and this is a stretch, but it kind of makes sense, is a Hitchcockian rule of suspense.
When's he gonna use the 4th, 5th, 6th,
Yeah,
7th,
Hitchcock
8th,
once said,
10th
you have 2 characters sitting around a table talking about baseball or whatever, and then the camera pans down and shows there's a bomb under the table. It's going to add suspense, because now everything they're saying, no matter how mundane, is now more important, and the trick to suspense is never to have the bomb go off.
Right.
So he's got 5. You're wondering, oh shit, is he going to need these 5? And the answer is no. But that could also be me talking out of my ass.
I think that's a really powerful observation that I would be hard-pressed to believe was intentional in any way in this particular film.
I don't know. I kind of sold it well, though.
You did. For a second there, I'm like, wait a minute. Is Moonraker actually brilliant? And I just wasn't smart enough to keep up.
However, Hitchcock, while he thought most of the Bond films were trash, he had a soft spot in his heart for a couple scenes in GoldenEye, sorry, he was dead by then, Goldfinger, which he actually turned to the director and says, I don't like this movie, but I wish I would have stolen that scene. So I was like, well, that means you liked the movie, Alfie, or Hitch.
No. All right, maybe.
Leave me alone.
Toot.
I love that, man. Now, most of my notes from this point on are a lot of like observations. So I figured I would start like just kind of rolling through some of those and see where this conversation takes us.
Sure.
Like I said, this movie has every Bond trope ever, and that's everything from like, shaken, not stirred. They have the pretty strong heroine. They got like the icy brunettes and gadgets galore, chase sequences, traveling the world. I made note in the beginning, and it's probably because the film was British, but I love that it was they had a thing that says most secret. It's that top secret. And I was like, that's so English. But then I was like, oh, that's goofy. And I realized, wait, that actually makes more sense than top secret. What the fuck is top secret?
Right. What if you create something more secret than top secret? Then you've got a problem.
Yeah, and then it's most secret.
Most seems something you can adjust. You can't raise the top of a mountain, but if something more secret comes along, that becomes the most secret.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I just want to talk about Jaws.
And can we talk about the love story?
Yes, that's part of it. You can't talk about Jaws without talking about that love story.
I would like to start off this particular conversation with, what?
Yes, because it's so out of nowhere. It just seems like it's shoehorned in.
Shoehorned in the beginning, but I was impressed with how it paid off in the end.
Yeah.
Like, I was surprised that it paid off because it seemed so shoehorned in and then kind of disappeared for a little while.
And it was shoehorned in because apparently they got a lot of letters from when the first movie that Jaws was in that the kids loved him and they're like, you should make him into a good guy. So they did.
But he played the perfect foil to the whole concept that the evil villain was trying to, create this new perfect race and then Bond was playing, well, boy, Jaws, you don't really fit into that. You and your new wife don't really fit into that, do you? Jaws conflicted.
What do I do? And then, there's a missed opportunity, because I really thought, when Jaws was trapped underneath the wreckage of the monorail. The monorail?
Monorail.
I've sold monorails to Brockway, Ogdenville, and North Haverbrook, and by gum, it put them on the map. Well, sir, there's nothing on earth like a genuine, bona fide, electrified 6-car monorail. What'd I say?
Monorail.
What's it called?
Monorail.
That's right, monorail.
Monorail.
I don't think it was actually a monorail, but that sounded good.
I've sold monorails to North Haverbrook.
And Ogdenbrook. When the little girl, I don't know if she has a name. I just call her a little girl, even though she wasn't actually a child. She's just tiny.
And next to Jaws, she's
the little
she was
woman.
very short.
She came up and moved that wreckage. It's like, oh, she's really strong. Oh, she's not talking. And I was really hoping that she was gonna smile and she was gonna have braces on, and they didn't go with that. I thought that would have been oh, she's gonna see me for me because she's also a brace face. And they didn't go with
that.
The
music swells and they lean in for the kiss.
I really thought that was
lock up.
I really thought that was going to be the end of Jaws because they walked off essentially into the sunset together, and then he popped up 2 more times.
Okay, Jaws seemingly was destroyed at the end of every sequence, and then James Bond would go to some other country where Jaws already was.
It's because he's made of metal, I assume.
So
Wolverine versus Jaws.
Yeah, but he always seemed to know right where James Bond was gonna be.
Hugo Drax hired him, so he probably was like, I've got important information at this area. Be there.
and it's going to be discovered in this particular order.
However, I'm not gonna lie, it gave me slight chills a little bit, when they're in Rio and the Jaws is in that large costume walking down,
that clown,
and the fact that it was all done in a wide shot and you just saw him. It's it kind of made the hairs on my arm stand up. I was like, that's kind of creepy.
That was a well shot sequence.
Yeah, and as a whole, this entire movie was really well shot. Jean Tournier, I'm not very good at French, but he shot it, and I looked up his filmography, and it seems like he did a lot of French art house cinema, and it kind of shows. There's that scene. We'll go back to Jaws in a second, where the dogs are chasing that woman through the woods, and just the way it was shot was really engaging, even though the dogs looked very playful.
I was again with the dogs and. I was also surprised that they introduced that character, killed her off with dogs. I was waiting for James Bond to show up and crazy knockout dart the dogs, but nope, she just died and then was never mentioned again.
I know it's really dark, especially because there have been characters that died in Bond films before, but it's always you have betrayed me, and a door closes and that's alluded to it. They're killed. This woman was torn apart by dogs.
Yeah, and it didn't, like, even you could make an argument that it is going to develop Hugo's character, that he dispatched somebody, but the way that it was put together, it didn't even really seem to do that. It could have cut back to him to go, yes, I've succeeded in having this girl dispatched, but like it didn't. So it really seemed to do nothing other than, like, okay, just so you know, audience, you're not going to hear from her again.
Yeah, it was
really strange. More of a hand wave, a beautifully shot hand wave.
Yeah, like, I was watching, it's like, man, this is, and especially because this was I believe the first Bond film in, like, widescreen like that.
Okay.
You know, at least this wide. This looks like they're shooting on, like, anamorphic widescreen lenses because the edges of the frame were slightly rounded.
And got some vignetting.
It was beautiful. Going back, I guess let's finish up our little Jaws conversation where it's like, in the end, Jaws helps Bond out, and he kind of goes out. I like the way that they eventually got rid of Jaws, where it's like, you know, he bites open the thing of champagne, and him and his little lover, they share a drink before their time is over.
It's the old couple on the Titanic hugging on the bed.
Yeah. Realistically, I feel like Bond could have waited a little bit and saved them.
He could have. He knew he could have.
I'm hoping that since Jaws is apparently can't die, that he's just floating in space somewhere, waiting
in an eternal dance
with his lover. Oh, that's actually kind of sad.
Oh, yeah. The corpse of his lover, because she probably doesn't have that same Michael Myers power.
Probably. makes it still pretty sad. But no, what did you think of Jaws? Because this is your first experience with him.
Yeah, I mean, my first reaction was certainly that of okay, we've hit another great Bond trope of the kooky, surreal Bond villain.
Yeah,
you know, the altered, superhuman to some degree. So that, yeah, like every time one of those tropes popped up, I was like, oh yeah, cool. There's that.
Yeah, and
there's that thing that I only know from Austin Powers.
No, exactly. Like, it's crazy. Like, you know, like I said, like you said earlier, you'd imagine that Austin Powers is taking some of these tropes and running with them, and then you see Moonraker, and you realize,
like, are they?
There's sequences that just feels like Austin Powers took directly. Like, there's stuff in that space battle. You're like, oh, Austin Powers 2 just lifted this, and doesn't even have to make fun of it because it was a parody of itself.
Right. Moonraker was parodying James Bond long before Austin Powers was.
And it's kind of remarkable. I'm not even going to lie.
So that was my first reaction to St. Jaws. The fact that he kept popping up over and over again, even after he fell off a waterfall or got exploded or whatever the hell happened to him time and time again, was one of those moments where I thought, again, like, made me remember that in general these films aren't necessarily for me, but I can see why they're so fun. Oh, there's Jaws again, popping up to, but kind of out of context. Like I'm okay with something like that as long as it's properly supported in the film, and because it wasn't, it made it both problematic but also a lot of fun.
I'm also wondering if they added Jaws because they're like, if we don't have Jaws, Bond's not doing anything in these scenes.
Right.
Like they had the really awkward samurai fight and the gondola hovercraft. I can't even say that without cracking a smile.
So many like forced. Oh, what? Here, Bond, why don't you get into this big thing that's going to spin you around, and most people pass out here, but we'll just style you in it too. Oh, I'm sure. Let's make sure those straps are really tight.
I honestly feel like Goodhead put him in that thing intentionally because James Bond would not stop mansplaining shit to her.
Hashtag feminism.
Like, that's the only thing I kept thinking of, and she just kept rolling her eyes. Like, she's a doctor, dude. She probably knows this shit better than you do.
Which...
And anytime she'd explain something to him, he'd get super annoyed. It was really funny.
Granted, there was certainly... Now, I wasn't alive now, so I'm speaking just on my understanding. But there's this influx of a feminist movement in the 60s and 70s. So it makes sense. However, I found that all of that element, the fact that she has this overly sexualized Bond name, but then she is also this strong, and from what I've read, one of the more strong female...
Holly Goodhead, PhD.
Counterparts... that I was impressed with how well that played today. Like, it doesn't seem antiquated or, oh, that's the 70s idea of film feminism. Like, that part of it, I thought, still played really well.
She held her own against Bond, and I also like that, I guess in her own way, she's playing hard to get. Like, as soon as she pops on the screen that they're going to end up sleeping together, but, like, she wasn't automatically, like, charmed by him.
It felt like it was on her terms,
yeah.
Which is the important part of that.
She says when.
Yeah. So back to Jaws. Then the final bit of that. So there's the joy I felt just saying the trope. There's the middle part where it kind of took me out of it because it kept popping up over and over again for no reason. And then the final bit was when the love story thing happened at the end and paid off, and I was both pleasantly surprised that he had such an arc to his story, but also it added to the silliness of that final sequence.
Yes.
So that's my take on Jaws.
All right.
Great name.
I like Jaws, and it's just because he is like one of those he's one of those iconic James Bond villains. Like if they had a James Bond series of pop vinyls, Jaws would have his own.
Totally. He felt like a Masters of the Universe action figure.
I could see it. One thing I wanted to comment on, like at the beginning of the film, they supposedly go to California, and this film feels very French because a lot of it was shot in France. So like his French villa in California. And then like that guy who's sitting in the tree who's going to shoot Bond.
Oh yeah.
He missed. He looks like a.
Did I?
I love that sequence too. He just looks like a poor Frenchman, like the way he's dressed and everything else. Right. And I was like, oh, this is. But don't forget, this is California.
A lot of tweed for California.
Yeah. But no, that skeet shooting scene was pretty great. It's like you honestly thought you were gonna take Bond out that easily while you're skeet shooting.
And he was holding the gun. He's surrounded by his own henchmen. Why didn't he just shoot him? Like, I have a gun in my room. We could go shoot him right now together.
Right? I kept thinking of that scene too. Like, why you could have taken care of him? No one on your payroll is gonna snitch.
If they're not worried about poisoning 99.99% of the earth, like, they're not gonna be like, "Oh, you shot that guy? That wasn't cool, man."
So I'm just gonna like, hi, I'm Nick from accounting. I'm just gonna say right now that I don't agree with that, and then he shoots him too. Like that's one thing I have to say. I love about Captain Hook from Peter Pan. Was that there's that guy, that pirate who's singing. Captain Hook just gets so fucking annoyed and pulls out his gun and shoots him. He is more of a villain than Hugo Drax is.
Yeah. Well, and to expand on that tangent, there's kind of the Batman Joker relationship with Captain Hook and Peter Pan, where they almost need each other.
Yeah.
So Captain Hook is never going to kill Peter Pan, because the relationship is what keeps him going.
Yeah.
He wakes up every morning thinking about Peter Pan. And if he doesn't have that, then what would he do on Thursday?
And Bond doesn't have that. Actually, I wanted to write a short film at one point called Whatever Happened to James Bond. And it was going to be about like... Or I might have changed the title so it wasn't James Bond so I can get away with it. But essentially it was going to be a supervillain's funeral. No, sorry, not super. It was going to be James Bond's funeral, and all of his supervillains are sitting around talking about what it was like working with him. And then, like, I was going to have like a Hugo Drax type character go, I don't think he even knew my name. I really don't think he knew what was going on half the time. But, like, how he just completely hurt by this. That, like,
right, yeah.
And like,
I worked so hard at being a supervillain and never barely.
And
got
it was
going to
be all these people just lamenting about their time with Bond.
Amazing. I really enjoyed Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog.
I've never seen it, no.
Okay, Shamelist episode coming up soon.
Okay.
Because it's this surprisingly beautiful origin story of a villain.
Okay.
It's only like 45 minutes long, so it's easy to knock out. The music's great. It's really funny, but then by the time you
Neil Patrick Harris is in it, right?
Yes, he plays Dr. Horrible, a wannabe supervillain who is recording a blog of his papers.
That sounds adorable, anyways.
I think we've picked our next episode because I'd really love to talk about that film.
Okay. It's a film. It's not like I thought it was a web series.
It was written during the writer's strike, the old one, not the more recent one that was just avoided successfully. So I believe it was released in 3 parts.
Okay, so it's easy to find.
Yes, I believe it's still on Netflix.
Okay,
but
I'll check it out.
It's been a while since I've looked it up. But I've seen it in its assembled form of a 45-minute mini narrative.
Okay.
But it reminded me of what you were saying about how you always hear the story as told from the hero who's saving the day, but there are other interesting stories in there that if you told it from a different perspective, you can have a lot of fun with.
Yeah. All right, I'm down with that.
Cool.
One of the notes I had, and it became painfully obvious after a while, and me and Amanda were both commenting on it. The lack of music makes some scenes hella awkward. During that fight sequence, like with him and the samurai ninja guy, there was no like score to accompany any of it to make it like more intense or to like add suspense. It was just like a lot of like breathing and the sound of bad punches.
Breaking.
Eventually, like they had the diegetic sound of the band outside the church playing. I was like, oh, that works kind of well. But like, there's a scene later on, like when Bond and I think Dr. Goodhead are on that mountain and they're waiting to be rescued, and like those paramedics come up. And then they hit him over the head with that thing. No music accompaniment, so it's just super awkward. Like, there's so many times where I was like, I think a little score in this scene would have seriously helped it.
I loved how at the end of that sequence where they're being taken away in the ambulance, like James Bond rolls out, brushes himself off, stands up, but the doctor is still in the back of the ambulance driving away, and he doesn't seem the least bit concerned about her. He's like, all right, well, that was fun, and then he sees her again later. He's like, oh, I see you made it. Great, let's team up again. There was like no concern whatsoever as she's driven away by the bandit.
James Bond is a huge narcissist.
He doesn't care.
Like, if you want, like, honestly, you've seen the TV show Archer?
Yeah.
The way that Archer talks about himself is what I imagine is James Bond's constant inner monologue.
Seriously, Lana, this must be what it's like to have sex with me.
How can an airboat be selfish?
Nope, can't hear you. I'm too happy.
You can't hear me because you're redlining the engine.
Oh, thank you, certified airboat mechanic. Now, where's this pig launcher thing?
This heading 1 mile. Woo! But I'm serious, Archer. If you don't slow down...
I'll keep feeling this incredibly vibrant and alive?
Yeah, right up until you blow the damn engine, so...
Lana! I'm not gonna blow the...
Like, I feel like that's how he sees himself. But since he's an English gentleman, he won't say any of it. Archer is the way he is because he's American.
That would be uncouth.
Do you want AIDS? That's how you get AIDS. I'm like, I feel like I got a lot of things in my mind I want to say about Moonraker. I just can't like call it forth at the moment because like this is such a goofy movie.
Yeah, and I didn't particularly notice the lack of store in places, but only because I didn't happen to observe it, but I definitely felt the symptom of that you were describing, where a lot of these scenes felt hella awkward. Like he shows up in a place, has a surprise, again, for those, hopefully I put the right air quote emphasis on it, surprise battle with a villain, maybe finds a clue that drives the plot forward, maybe not. Maybe they just jump to the next scene, having not made any purpose to it. That happened more than once. And it felt weird, the pacing of the film. And
yeah. And like I said, it's a shame that there's these pacing issues, because every so often there would be some really great moments. Like the scene on top of the cable car was really well done. And like, while you could definitely see when they cut from a rear screen shot to like actually on location, the fact that they shot any of that on location is awesome.
You gotta hand it to the crew for pulling stuff like that off.
And like, as cheesy as some of the space stuff was, especially like when they're flying away on jetpacks and it looks like they're just standing on something, but they're just moving the character around the screen.
All of them coming out of the spaceship, like
like spores.
Yeah, totally.
And then, but like, there's still some well-made stuff in this film. I just feel like it was saddled with a bad script. Like at one point, Tom Mankiewicz, who wrote Citizen Kane, he did a draft of this script at one point. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen his version of this script.
That's amazing.
Like, it would have had James Bond dying in a bed as he dropped. Is he?
Moonraker.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to jump the gun.
I couldn't think of like what he would have dropped. It wouldn't have been a snow globe. He would have dropped his PP7 gun.
Yeah, or a tiny model of a spaceship.
Yep, and that's how it goes into Moonraker. Oh my God, it is Moon River. Oh,
let's take. Well, she did only have a week. Maybe she took Moon River and just crossed out River and wrote in Raker. She wouldn't have even had to have crossed out all of River. She could have just crossed out Iver and put Acre. And she only had to change 2 letters.
Yeah.
IV into AK. We've cracked the code.
We cracked it. We figured out the secret of Moonraker.
Episode done.
Well, no, we can't. This episode can't be done until we talk about the animal's reactions to his dumb land boat gondola thing. The fact that a pigeon did a double take.
and the great, like, the painter who bends down to get some more paint and goes up, and then his easel is gone.
And then the guy drinking, who's like, he puts down his alcohol. He's like, no more of that.
Yeah.
Like, you can't look cool driving a gondola aircraft hoverboat thing. And he tries so hard to look cool in that thing. He really does.
Roger Moore can do many things, but looking good in a land-based gondola, not possible.
But like, I was watching the sequence. It's like, when did this become a comedy?
Really odd inflections of comedy in places, and again, there are ways to do that successfully. This wasn't that.
No, like, you know, a dry sense of humor is what Bond needs. There's times in this movie it was downright slapstick.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's such a weird decision.
You add in the Benny Hill theme song, and you're done.
Like, unless they're trying to get more kids in, because like, Goldfinger. I keep harping on that one because it's my favorite of the Bond franchise. Okay. Goldfinger, and then the Man with the Golden Gun. I got a thing for gold.
I love gold. The look of it,
The taste of it, the smell of it, the texture.
Those didn't seem super kid friendly, but kids went to go see them, so maybe they're trying to like get that audience, or I don't know what their decisions were.
Yeah. But then at the same time, if you're trying to bring in the kid audience, then you have the scene of the girl being like chased down by the dogs in a way that
kids like dogs.
Kids love dogs. It's a puppy. Look,
yeah, look at how happy
he just wants to play.
Yeah, he's just gonna lick her face. Maybe there's a reason that this was Lewis Gilbert's last entry into the Bond franchise.
It's like, yeah, I think I have made the perfect Bond film, and I don't want to undo that by making another one. That's what you mean, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, right.
This is the highest-grossing Bond film of all time. Goff. And he goes and counts, and like I had to look it up. It's like, was this Roger Moore's last Bond film too? And no, he went on. But if this would have been his last Bond film, I would have been like, I get it. I understand Roger Moore, but he continued on. Continue.
I have a hard time believing that the money wasn't good enough to again, I can wax philosophical about artistic decisions, but I would sell out in a heartbeat if I could.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I'd be that pigeon doing the double take. You're gonna pay me what now?
However, I recommend on Hulu right now. There's a docu movie called Becoming Bond that I haven't watched yet, but it looks fascinating. It's about I think on Her Queen's Secret Service, or on Her Majesty's Secret Service. That was it. The only Bond film out of like the canonical Bond franchise to have a one-off Bond. Australian actor by the name of George Lazenby.
Yep.
He was just discovered completely by accident. He went onto this film to become Bond. They offered him a 10-movie offer, and he didn't take it. And it's about it's told by George Lazenby, but then reenacted as an actual movie about why he didn't take it and just the craziness that was being Bond.
Huh.
And like all the sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Fascinating.
It's annoying though, because like they're taking I think today might be the last day. On Her Majesty's Secret Service, they're taking the Bond films off of Hulu, but they're gonna have the movie about that movie. Like what?
Building up demand.
Yeah, so I recommend. I haven't watched it yet, but it said the trailers look great, and maybe it'll give you a little perspective on what they kind of offered these Bond actors, like what their lives were like.
You got to make them feel like the Bond, so that they can put it forth on the screen.
Yeah. So, anything else you want to talk about with Moonraker?
I think we've covered most of my thoughts. I mean, in general, obviously, the reaction is, wow, what an interesting, campy, silly, but at the end of the day, fun movie. And
I think the reason it works is at no point do I ever think that this was their intended end product. Like, even the comedies, like, this movie's really funny, but it was not funny in the way they were hoping. They're hoping that some of these comedy scenes would just be like some levity amongst all the serious action.
Right.
Nowadays, I feel like someone would just try to make their own Moonraker, and I feel like that's why it would fail. This movie just feels like it just happened.
It was so unintentional.
Yeah, and that's why Moonraker is amazing, and you'll never have another Moonraker, I don't think. And it's such a product of its time, because unfortunately, movies like this aren't made all that often. Like it's hard to find a big budget movie that's just so unintentionally funny. Not saying they don't exist. I just don't see them.
I forget the name of the documentary, but there's a documentary out there about the film Trolls 2.
Oh, yeah.
You familiar with this?
Best worst movie.
I think we are, aren't we?
Dr. Hardy's office is Peter.
We don't speak too much about it.
Is that really my son?
It was so not him.
The strangest thing to watch.
Will you kill me if I tell him?
No, tell him. It was just crazy because nobody in the community even knew that George was in a film.
I was in a movie back in 1989. It's
called Troll 2, and it's become known as the worst film of all time.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I laughed in about the middle of the movie.
It was so bad.
I maybe hoped it wouldn't be as bad as it was, but it was.
I had no idea what it all meant or what I was doing or what I was saying.
By every conceivable measure, this is a bad film.
Oh my gosh, that's the worst movie I've ever seen.
There's this movie you've got to see. I've watched it a million times.
Thank you all for coming to the 5th annual Los Angeles Troll 2 party.
Oh my God, you didn't see it? You haven't seen Troll 2? We're watching it now.
And that's what people do with this movie. They pass the DVD around like it's the Bible.
2 decades after it was made, Troll 2 is finally finding an audience.
It is sold out for tonight.
My friends and I thought we were like the only people in the world who knew about this.
Wow. Hey, nice to meet you. I don't feel that kind of feeling when I'm drilling a cavity.
What do you think that you were to the worst movie? I did a very good movie.
He really believed in what he was making.
Action!
You are an actor. You cannot laugh.
I really wanted to be an actor from the start.
Oh boy.
I think George was born an actor. Dentistry is just a stage he's on.
Can I ask you another question? Honestly, I'm like a cult luminary. When I go to these screenings, I would never dream. Does anybody want my autograph? But anyway, we'll go over your treatment plan in just a second. So. I was in a film called Troll 2.
Okay. And that conversation reminds me of that because it is like the Trolls 2 was ridiculous in a very fun way. But they interview the director of that film in this documentary several times. And it's so uncomfortable how oblivious he doesn't understand that, not that it's being made fun of, because I really think that all of the fans of Trolls 2 in this film appreciate it in the same way that we're appreciating this. Like they're not watching it after all these years to make fun of it. They're reveling in the campiness and the silliness. But the director doesn't get it.
No,
like he thinks that he's made a great film and people finally appreciate it for what he intended it to be. And it speaks to that like unintentionally silly or unintentionally funny.
That being said about Troll 2, and I'm going to say this, I feel really bad for that filmmaker.
Oh, absolutely.
Because like there's times where I'm it's heartbreaking because like he honestly thinks he made a good movie. Whatever, you did not, but
fine.
Making a movie is hard.
Yeah. Yep.
So anytime someone finishes one, they get some respect out of me, even if I don't like the movie. That being said, his name is Claudio Fragrazzi. Or Fragrazzo, okay. Sorry. He is a journeyman exploitation filmmaker in Italy. He's made a lot of... I couldn't help but feel bad for him later on in the film when like everyone's like essentially talking the movie and like he's in the audience.
He starts to catch on. He starts to realize that this isn't about them appreciating the film in the way that he does.
And it's like I feel legitimately bad for him because like he's hurt. And like it makes me feel really uncomfortable with just the way everyone's making fun of him. Because now it's easy for them to all make fun of it. But like, especially because he really thought he was making a good film.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So, I'm sorry, Lewis Gilbert, if our making fun of you made you feel bad. Because I legitimately loved this movie.
And at the end of the day, like you said, it takes a lot to make a film. And if... Like I just hope when I put things out there that it's enjoyed by a couple people. That's all I can really hope for at the level that I'm doing things. And
same.
There are people that even if it's not for the reason that you had hoped, there are people that are enjoying those films.
I am a proud owner of a DVD copy of Normal, so I know, and your book.
Woo!
And your book. We own your book too.
Nice. Have you had a chance to read it?
Amanda has. She liked it a lot.
Cool. I'm hoping to write my second novel later this year.
You're writing your next novel. I'm trying to write some scripts. I wrote a really weird one about a guillotine.
You sent it to me. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'm very eager to check that out.
And then I'm also writing a movie about a vengeful lucha libre ghost. Because Mexican wrestling and a vengeful ghost go hand in hand.
Why they haven't been put together yet, I have no idea.
Well, there was a movie called WrestleManiac, but he wasn't a vengeful spirit. He was just a serial killer lucha.
Nice. That's amazing.
Yeah. I don't know why this became a little bit about us talking about what we're working on, but what the hell?
It happens.
Yeah, sometimes we have to talk a little bit about ourselves. As always, I just want to take a moment and say we really appreciate anyone that's listening to this show. Even if you only listen to an episode, we really appreciate it, because me and Nick, we'd be doing this honestly if no one's listening, just because we like having an excuse to talk talk to each other. But I'm not going to admit, there are times where I'm editing the episodes and I'm putting a lot more thought and time into it than I feel like I should be. And I thought, does anyone actually care? But then I realized I like doing this. This is a lot of fun for me, and it's kind of like it's I don't want to say it's the best part of my week, but it's a better point of my week, because it not only does it give me an excuse to sit down and focus on a movie, but then it gives me an excuse to talk with you for a little while. Sometimes my wife, who's like an unofficial third co-host, jumps on too, and especially because our schedules are so opposite, it gives us a chance to bond a little bit, and you don't get to talk to her all that often either.
Right. I love both of you guys. I miss you. We don't get enough time.
No, I've realized I don't think I've ever met your wife. She wasn't in Bowl. She left when we started hanging out. She'd gone, I think, taking your daughter home?
Right.
Back to your parents' house?
And, I'll say something like, oh, yeah, Michael just messaged me about this, and she'll be like, who? Huh?
Every so often she'll comment, like, I'll ask questions on, like, your photos, and she'll be the one that comments. Well, I think it's actually her photos that you're tagged in, but still.
Right.
One day I'll meet Corinne.
She's pretty cool.
Yeah, I imagine so. She married you. She has to be pretty cool.
Right. Yeah. She clearly has great taste in men.
Yeah. But no, the point. I don't. Sometimes it annoys me when. It used to annoy me when podcasts would harp on this, but now after having run a podcast, I know why you do it. More than anything, just stay active with us, guys. Like on our Facebook page, it's a little silent. I post a lot. And, just tell us what you think. Give us some comments. Like, rate, and subscribe. Just let us know that you're listening, that you appreciate what we do. I think I could talk about it, right? The DVD?
Yeah, totally.
I recently hooked up with a video store in Chicago that I like quite a bit. It's mostly a rental place, so I couldn't really rent anything, but I bought a cool blaxploitation Western from them, so that's pretty dope. They're called Odd Obsessions Video. They're a really neat place. They're a cinephiles video store, because they have things broken down to really obscure genres. Like, it doesn't just have horror. Like, they'll have it broken down into subgenres. They have, they got exploitation and sexploitation, and they've got, like, they break it down by directors. They have monthly themes that are curated, and what's cool about the place is it's completely volunteer run, which is kind of cool. And nice. I recently been talking to the owner, Josh, and he listened to one or two of our episodes, liked it, and there's a chance, if we can get everything figured out, that a couple episodes of the Shamelist Picture Show podcast picture show will be on DVD for rental at Odd Obsessions Video. And if there's a high enough demand, we might start selling them. Or maybe if we ever do a Patreon page, it's something that me and Nick need to talk about privately if we feel like it's even worth it. Maybe it'll be something that we give away to high enough, donators. But there will be a couple DVDs. Different. We're gonna do it in volumes, and they will be available to rent if you are in the Chicago area, or you can hit us up and tell us that you want one.
Yeah, we'll most likely be able to work something out.
Yeah.
We know a guy.
You slip us a couple bucks, you'll get it.
Couple Sawbucks.
Yeah. Or even just a Starbucks gift card, because, we're poor.
Yeah.
Nick is in a fancy studio that he lives in. He has to live there. And
in the basement They don't let me out much.
I'm a struggling filmmaker who works at Target, so Starbucks gift cards, Jimmy John's, anything. It all helps.
Caffeinate us. Feed us.
And
all right.
And finally, before we wrap up, if any of you listening know of anyone who is interested in sponsoring a podcast, we don't ask for much. We can talk about it off air. Or even if you want to do it yourself, like, we will gladly pimp your stuff.
Yeah.
You know, if you got a short film that you want us to talk about that has some dates coming up that, like, at film festivals, send us a message. We can work something out. You know, we're for the people. Wu-Tang's for the children, and the Shameless Picture Show podcast is for the people.
Yep, particularly the film majors, but not exclusively.
Yeah, if you're an author, or just anything.
We love art. We love stories, and as to independent creators, we know the struggle. Like, you know, we know shilling things out of your trunk for whatever the person that's interested has in their wallet. Like, and if we can help get the word out there about your thing, and as you've heard from our feedback too on these other movies, like, we're not out there to trash somebody else's art for the sake of being snobs. Like, we're, at the end of the day, we appreciate the work that goes into something, and even if something has flaws, hopefully, you know, we can see the beauty and the intention in it, and
no, exactly, and like,
sell it on those merits.
This is, and I've said this before, this is why I wouldn't be a good critic. Is because I'm too easy. So I'm too nice sometimes, I feel like. Or maybe not even that. I just, like, I'm not an overly critical person. There'll be times where something doesn't work for me. It's very rare that I hate anything.
Yeah.
I'm not it's not to say I like everything. It's just, you know, some things work for me, some things don't. But I'm a firm believer that, especially as a independent filmmaker myself, it's not my place to trash any other people's works. Yeah, I'll poke fun of something, but, like, in the end, it comes from a place of respect.
Yeah.
Especially Moonraker.
Moonraker.
He's the moon you love to touch, but you mustn't touch. His name sounds good in your ear, and if you hear it, you mustn't fear, 'cause his name can be said by anyone. Sorry, I can't sing.
Max Power?
Dynamic, isn't it?
I love it, Max. You changed your name without consulting me?
That's the way Max Power is, Marge. Decisive, uncompromising, and rude. Oh, wait a minute. The family name is my legacy to you. I got it from my father, and he got it from his father, and he traded a mule for it. And that mule went on to save Spring Break.
You nailed it.
I mainly kept that going because of your reaction. If you wouldn't have been smiling, I would have just stopped after Moonraker.
No, it was beautiful.
Oh, and I'm going to listen to that when I'm editing this and just cringe. My spine will become glass.
Do not cut that out.
I will not, because you've asked me to.
Yes.
All right, Nick, is there anything else?
I don't think so. I'm guessing you haven't gotten any Fun New Vinegar Syndrome packages?
Not yet. I know they've been busy. They've been at pretty much conventions every weekend, and they just had their halfway to Black Friday sale.
Nice.
So I bought some.
Awesome.
Some.
What'd you buy?
Hold up 1 second. I gotta pull up the titles because they're ones I have never seen.
They're on your shame list.
Yeah. One of them is called Hellbent.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me pull up the description because I read this description and I was like, yes, I need that. Oh, the website's down.
Nah. We'll hit them next time.
I'm dedicated now to telling you what this movie's about.
Committed.
Un momento. First one is called Hellbent. Director Richard Casey's second feature film is an ambitious, at times dreamlike Faustian tale set in the rough underworld of LA's heavy metal and punk music scene. Lemmy is the front man for an unsuccessful band who's willing to do anything to make it. After a chance meeting with Mr. Tanas, a music promoter, Lemmy is offered the deal of a lifetime, fame for nothing more than his soul. The young singer doesn't believe in such things and accepts the offer, but quickly learns that this sleazy promoter has more in store for Lemmy than just the stardom he's dreamed of. Directed and photographed like a surreal documentary co-starring David Marciano and Darcy Nichols, Hellbent is a blood-soaked document of late 80s Los Angeles as seen through the eyes of outcasts and derelicts. Vinegar Syndrome proudly presents this forgotten gem of independent horror, newly restored from its original 35mm negative and on Blu-ray and DVD for the first time ever.
Nice. That does sound really good.
And then I also bought, because I think I've mentioned before how I am I'm a sucker for slasher films.
A slasher sucker?
Slasher sucker. Let's go with that. So I bought a movie called Madman, which is one that was lost for many years. And this one is about years ago, Madman Mars violently murdered his family only to escape into the woods before his execution could be completed. Legend has it that anyone calls his name above a whisper can summon him back to continue his bloody rampage. But teenage Richie, away at camp, doesn't believe the old legend and calls his name. As night falls, strange things start happening at camp, and soon Madman Mars is back, axe in hand, to finish the killing spree he started decades ago. One of the true classics of 80s slasher cinema, Vinegar Syndrome proudly presents Madman on Blu-ray for the first time, restored in 4K from the camera negative.
Nice.
So I got those.
Cool.
And then I also bought a Vincent Price collection because it's going out of print soon.
I'm Frederick Lauren, and I've rented the house on Haunted Hill tonight so that my wife can give a party. A haunted house party. She's so amusing.
I bought an odd Vincent Price DVD collection a while ago from, I believe, a grocery store, which had this great tin that you push a button and it'd like scream at you. Except on like a couple of the films, the audio track and the video track weren't synced up.
Yeah. But this Vincent Price collection though is fantastic because like it's the one I really wanted because Scream Factory, which is another company I absolutely adore for what they're doing for horror movies, have done 3 volumes of Vincent Price collection, and I realistically would like them all because he's my favorite actor.
Yeah.
Though the first collection is like $200 now because it's out of print, so that one might not happen. But this has a couple of my favorite Vincent Price films. This has The Comedy of Terrors, which is a comedy film of Vincent Price playing a drunkard, which is amazing. And then to have on Blu-ray, The Last Man on Earth, Dr. Fives Rises Again, Return to Fly, and House on Haunted Hill on awesome. Blu-ray, because like I've only seen House on Haunted Hill in very terrible looking versions.
Right.
So that's what I bought. That's what's on my doorstep.
Awesome.
Hopefully it'll be coming today. Yeah. Right. I guess maybe every so often it wouldn't be a bad thing to talk about a little bit, like just little cool things about our lives, like what we bought.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, I'll talk to Vinegar Syndrome and see if they want me to do episodes on those 2 discs that I bought, and just, if not, I'll watch them on my own and tell you about them.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah. But that's been another episode of the Shameless Picture Show podcast.
What? My brain has gone gooey. I don't.
This is where we say goodbye, Nick.
Right. Take 2. All right, I'm good.
This has been another episode. Right. This has been another episode of the Shameless Picture Show podcast.
Thanks for listening. It sounded official.
Yeah,
right?
we were eventually going to have to come up with a better way to end this show, but
a sign off. It was a fun watch. So next time we'll do Dr. Horrible.
Yep. And at some point we have to do Taxi Driver because I'm sitting on a disc of it and I've never seen it. So.
All right. So we have two lined up then. Dr. Horrible, then Taxi Driver.
Have you seen Taxi Driver?
I have.
Well, then we need to pick something off of your shame list eventually, because those are both off of mine.
You're right.
So, Dr. Horrible, something off yours, and Taxi
Something
Driver.
Else, then Taxi Driver. Sounds good.
Oh, I also did. I know this is a movie I think we both haven't seen. I did buy Apocalypse Now.
I have not seen that.
Me neither.
But that would be like 4 in a row for you. Like, I feel like we gotta throw something into the mix that you have context for.
Yeah. I know. I'm just trying. I buy things and I get excited and I'm like, oh wait, this is a planned episode. Damn it!
Yeah, we have like 200 films on our shame list.
I'm sure we can find something.
We'll tick them away. We'll tick them down.
All right. Well, everyone,
for
have
the
a
third
good one.
time, this has been the Shameless Picture Show podcast. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and we will see you 2 weeks from now.
Well, they'll see us. We'll just... Whatever. Goodbye.
Here's to us.